India in 7 minutes is a challenge, and if I'm supposed to do it in 3.5 minutes, it would be impossible. So I will only do it in English. I hope you will forgive me, and I hope everybody will follow up. Otherwise, come to me afterwards, and I'll be happy to do it in person. So who are we? We are a small 3-person family. My name is Anders, my wife Eva, and Abel is sitting down there with his grandma. Abel is 5 years old, and so he's not in school yet, and this was a great opportunity for us to go and see the world before he was sort of bogged down by all the duties of school. And so when Bente came to Eva and said, Eva, I need someone like you, because I need someone that knows how to do textile design so we can do something great at Shamayita that we can actually sell somewhere else. I think you should also buy those bags, but Eva didn't design them. Yeah. And this was an obvious opportunity for us. We really wanted to go. I had never been to India before, and we were open for this great experience. So we packed up, and 15th of February we flew to Delhi and then on to Kolkata, and then by bus to Durgapur, and then we ended up in, I think, Bente already said so, the middle of nowhere. That's essentially, from our perspective, definitely true. So we were settled in by some of the most heart-warm, welcoming, loving people, most brilliant, intelligent mothers of Shamayita. There were definitely also men there. There were also the monks. They also took us in, but it's definitely the mothers that leave an impression with us. They tended to us in every possible way, and we settled into our daily routine with them. We had our 3 meals in the cafeteria. They were super thoughtful. I left my phone, I had a few notes. Okay, this is gonna be without notes. They were super thoughtful, made sure that there was something for Abel to eat. When he wasn't quite happy about the food, they would come with cow milk. They'd make sure, watch every day, make sure they would get cereal. I don't even know how they got cereal, but they managed to get chocolate cereal, and even Abel had a wonderful time there. They took us in, they showed us all of the experience, and so when Lars asked me, well, weren't you bored? I was like, he just asked me before, and it was like, this question hadn't kind of dawned on me. I understand why you would ask the question, of course, because there are certainly none of the opportunities that you have in Copenhagen for entertainment and consumption, and life is definitely very different and very mellow in its own way. But there were so many things for us to experience, and this was my first time in India, and so just the first 2 weeks of just getting past the cultural shock and understanding anything that was going on around me was definitely not boredom. And aside from all of that, there were all the trips that they would take us on. They took us to see all the initiatives, the village school. They took us to see the hospital. They took us out to see farming initiatives, how they would grow mushrooms indoors, how they would do different farming initiatives to do micro irrigation, and all of the different initiatives they have in the place. We definitely got away from there with an incredible sense of very skilled, very passionate people doing an incredible work to improve livelihoods of the people in the local community. My contribution ended up being filming, documenting some of the initiatives. So if you go to the basement, you'll be able to see 3 movies. There's 1 movie about the hospital, there's 1 movie about the village school and the village life, and there's another video about the textile lab, and Eva will talk much more about textiles. I thought what was interesting to me in making the movie about the hospital was, this is certainly no hospital that I've ever seen before. There's very little resemblance to anything that you'd see when you walk through the door in Rigshospitalet. But the interesting story about that hospital was not so much that the physical surroundings were so different from what we'd find here. The really interesting story to me was all the similarities I'd find, how I would find very passionate doctors volunteering from their big hospitals in Kolkata or wherever they would come from. And they would do actual procedures. They would do, you will see even in the movie, someone doing an eye surgery in this hospital. And if you asked me when I came to that place that this was a place for eye surgery, I definitely wouldn't have believed you. But they did so, and they helped people. And so many people were better off because of the work of Shamayita Math and the incredible doctors there. I'm sure I'm out of time, but I can't talk about my experience at Shamayita without talking about India in general. I'd never been to India before, and especially in this crowd where I sense that a lot of people have attachment to India, I'm deeply ashamed about the amount of prejudice I had before I went to India. I think for the most part I'm excused, because when I now come home and I reflect and I realize where I get my information, right, the tainted glasses that I have to look at the world and look at India, and I look at what's reported in media, I'm not getting the stories about the women of Shamayita Math, right? I'm not getting the story of the incredible diversity in this country. I'm not getting a story about how different India is and how it defies any kind of generalization. I get a very, very few stories, and there's usually something like bus falls off bridge or violence against women or social unrest, right? And that's what I get, and that was what I traveled to India with. And I have to admit, honestly, I have to admit that when this opportunity arose from Bende, I said to her, "Oh, I wish it was somewhere else than India." I'm so happy to report today that I'm thrilled to the core of my heart that it was India. We traveled on for 3 months. We only spent a month and a half in India. We went to Nepal, we went to Cambodia, we went to Laos, we went to Vietnam. We had great experiences all around. But truly, India was such an incredible experience. And that sensation I had in the cab the first day, driving from the airport to Kolkata, which was, I have to say, just sheer panic. I was holding this container of chili powder, which I intended to throw in the face of the cab driver while I was following on Google Maps. So if you would just veer the slightest off our route, I would like kicking them throw chili powder, right? I can't even begin to describe how insane that feeling was and how ashamed I am of having been that place. And I'll say that if there's one thing coming home I'm gonna bring, I'll definitely spread the good word about Shamayita, but I'll definitely also try help bring down some of the prejudice about India, because oh, how wrong it is. So that's anyone that hasn't been should go, and I'm sure they'll go away with similar experiences. So with that, I'll leave the word for Eva to talk more concrete terms about the work that she did with the women and the volunteering in the textile department. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm a textile designer, and it's kind of superficial. I work with aesthetics and function, and sometimes it just feels very meaningless to work with that. So when Bende came to me and suggested that I could go to India and volunteer on a textile project, it just felt very meaningful, because often I envy doctors and teachers that they can do a real impact and travel with their jobs. But then I realized actually I can do that as a textile designer myself as well, and I think I would be a crap doctor anyway, so that's probably good. And then we had a sponsorship of 10,000 kroner from a ladies' organization in Aarhus that I could go and spend on a project. And when we first came, then we were introduced to Mother Rupa, and her and I and Anders were working very closely together. And she made very clear to us from the beginning that they were very happy with the funding and the charity, but said we rather prefer real business. Can you get us some customers? Because charity is okay. We would actually much rather have a real business going here. So the sewing department, about that, it's daily employs 5 people, and they mainly earn money on making school uniforms. There are about 600 or 700 girls, so they make school uniforms for them, but the rest of the year they don't have much to do. So she was looking for a business plan of how could we employ these people the rest of the year, and also if we actually also could get some work out to the rural women. Because the problem was for some of the women is that either they are unmarried and they can't really leave the home, and others were widows because of traffic accidents, and it was also very hard for them to earn money. And I don't understand much about caste and all the system in India, but I could just feel that they were in a very difficult situation and had a hard time. They couldn't do labor in the fields, for instance. Even if they were famished, they had to do some kind of appropriate work, but it was just impossible for them to get. So I thought about these women and that I wanted to get them some work that they could do in the home. And then we are down to how I spent the 10,000 kroner, because 10,000 kroner is not a lot in Denmark, but from home I hadn't looked at these sewing machines that I would get for the women, and then I thought, okay, we can maybe teach them how to use the sewing machines, and then we can put them out in the villages. But then Mother Rupa said to me, and she wasn't happy to admit it because she was of course happy that I was there to volunteer and happy about the funding. But she said, like, I'm sorry, but the machines you have chosen, they're useless because they're plastic. First of all, it gets 50 degrees here in the summertime, so they'll basically melt. Another thing is we often have power cuts, so we don't have any electricity. And another thing is we are so far away from everything. So if these machine breaks down, nobody can fix them. So she would much rather prefer I know them from like old movies. I've never seen one actually, but like black metal with like foot. And she said we would much rather have these. So then I could buy some of those machines, and then I had lots of extra money to use. And then I thought of, okay, what is a good plan? Because the most important thing about my work is that it'll continue after I'm gone. And therefore we made a plan, and we selected 9 women, unmarried, 20-year-olds, and mainly widows who were selected for this program. And then they go every day to get training using the sewing machines, and if they do well, then eventually we'll put the sewing machines out in the villages for them to help do the work with the school uniforms. Also, we employed a designer from Kolkata because they really wanted some business. They didn't want charity, as I said. They want real customers. So we employed this designer Urmi from Kolkata, who is now has taken over since I'm gone. And also another very important thing, that all the materials is accessible in the area. It doesn't work that I have these ideas about what I can get in the shops in Copenhagen. It had to be local materials that we could go into Durgapur and get. And that's why I have brought this sari. It was really important for me that it wasn't me coming as a Danish designer telling them what to do. It was super important that we took all the patterns and all the stitches and everything from their own cultural inheritance, because this is not a project about me, this is a project about them. The women have made some bags. They're currently on the way to Denmark, and I have made a list, so if anybody should be interested, you can come and sign your name, and I'll tell you once the bags reach India or Denmark. This is made by the local ladies, and they have used the same stitching techniques for the bag that I have made with them. That is down to who is the real hero or the heroines of this story, and it's certainly not I, because I was only there for months, so it's not I. And it's not Urmi either. She has a financial interest, but that's actually super good, the designer from Kolkata, because she's their first customer. And I'm sorry, it's not you either. I know you have collected a lot of money throughout the time, but the real heroes of this story, it's the 9 women who have decided to take like their own destiny into their own hands. And we don't want to go home. They live in mud huts. They don't have electricity. They go down to pick water from the well. They don't have anything. But they are super proud, strong women who have taken the destiny into their own hands. And they are the real heroes about this story. So let's salute them. And if you want to buy their work, then come and say hi to me afterwards, and I'll note out your email addresses. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And as Anders said, there will be running some movies in the basement during the eating session. You can go down there and enjoy the movies. But now it's time to move on, and I hope you are all enjoying this lovely Danish summer day. We have all gathered here for a noble cause, and now it's time for the cultural program.